Hello, this is Anthony with Bleacher Bums Gaming, and just a little reveal. Package came today, and been eagerly awaiting this. Basically, going back to when I did play board games, and before I started this channel last year, I hadn't really played in, I think I've mentioned in previous blogs, like, oh God, probably 30 years. So back when I did play, the two main games I played in the late 70s, well, three main games I played in the late 70s, early 80s were Title Bout Boxing, excellent game by Jim Trunzo. Avalon Hill's Superstars of Baseball, which was basically a Hall of Fame set, and had at that time all the greats enough to make 8 teams, and that had the same dice mechanic as Pay Dirt or Bowl Bound, if you're familiar with those Avalon Hill games. And the other one, and my most favorite of the 3 games I played, was Statis Pro Baseball, and I got my first Statis Pro game in 1981. And even to this day, even with the hours I put into games like Payoff Pitch and Strat to a lesser degree on this channel, I'd have to say Statis Pro is still my most played baseball game. I did try Strat-O-Matic back in the day, just never really hooked me in. And even today, as popular as Strat is, and it is a good game, obviously, it has a huge following, it still is not my first choice when it comes to baseball games. I would put Payoff Pitch ahead of that. I would put History Maker Baseball ahead of that. And now I will put Statis Pro ahead of that. And I had looked at this, I've looked at this a few times over the years, and really hadn't pulled the trigger because one of the few drawbacks of the game back in the day was the lack of splits. And it wasn't that big a deal to me then, but now that games are more focused, I guess, on splits and whatnot, it became a bigger issue. And during the past year, I discovered that someone had kept the game alive, Derek, and you can find his cards on eBay, and created an advanced version that has splits, lefty-righty splits for both pitchers and batters. And I don't know why I'm doing it this way, but lefty-righty splits for pitchers and batters, and add some additional rules as well. And the other thing back in the day, I played strictly fast action cards back in the day, in the 80s, early 80s, and hadn't really thought at that time about using dice. And at this point, thanks to Payoff Pitch, I've got a good, I think, play system there where I use both dice and fast action cards. And as I contemplated getting back into Statis Pro, I'm like, that system could work with Statis Pro as well. And there are some resources out there on playing with straight dice. I really don't want to do that. I think that's a little bit cumbersome with the charts, but I think Statis Pro is a game that works really well with a dice and fast action card mechanics. So in this case, it would be 3 1d6s, 2 of course to determine if the result comes off the pitcher's or batter's card, the 2 1d8s to get the result, and then the third 1d6. The way I will play this is to use 6. When a 6 comes up on the off-color 1d6, I will check the play result for an error, and I'm sorry, not an error, clutch defense or clutch batting. And if the result comes off the pitcher or batter's card, it would be a clutch batting check. If it comes off the pitcher's card, clutch defense check. And I'm actually really still on the fence if I'll even use those. Clutch defense especially really isn't a thing to me. Either you're a good defensive player or you're not. The only difference might be if a game was important, such as a World Series game, you might sell out a little bit more. And a good example would be that catch Derek Jeter made, where he chased that foul ball down near the third base stands and basically dove into the stands and made a great catch. Yeah, he's going to do that in the World Series. Do you do that in a game on April 23rd? Probably not, because you're trying to stay healthy for the long haul. So to me, that's really where clutch defense comes into play. Ozzie Smith is going to be Ozzie Smith, whether it's April, whether it's runners on base, whether it's a Game 7 of the World Series, whatever. He's going to make the plays. Clutch batting, I kind of feel the same way about that, in that, you know, when you look at statistics, clutch batting statistics are such a small sample, and I'm not going to spend time on this. It's probably time for another, or a place for another discussion, but, you know, you look at Derek Jeter, he hit pretty much close to the same in clutch situations, meaning late, runners in scoring position, etc., as he did throughout his career. Even A-Rod, who is kind of maligned for not being a clutch hitter in the postseason, yeah, he had 2 or 3 really bad postseasons where he hit under 200. But if you go back in his career or look at different series, he also had some series where he hit over 400. So, you know, it's a very small sample, and it's really hard to define. Either you're a good hitter or you're not a good hitter, is bottom line. And A-Rod's postseason batting average is, you know, significantly 20-odd points or more lower than his career batting average. But again, that's a small sample. If it represents basically a month of his career, and if you go back and pick out months of anyone's career, you're going to find months where they had a crappy batting average and months where they tore the cover off the ball. So anyway, I digress. I probably will start off using those, and we'll see if I want to keep it or not. But to this set, 1976 Statis Pro Set Advanced has the splits. I like the cards. You know, maybe a little bit busy, but not too busy. Has all the ratings here. Has some stats up here, and helps you determine, you know, how the players are overall, and that's kind of a nice touch. Color coded by team, and of course the lefty-righty splits. So why 76? Going back to the early to mid 70s, and I was 13 when the 1976 baseball season started, so I'd just become a teenager and had not yet completely fallen away from the innocence of youth as I would in later years, and pursue other things more intently than say watching a baseball game on TV. But, you know, from 1969 to 1976, even 77 and 78, I would always try and catch the game of the week. And back then, NBC carried the game of the week. It was on every Saturday. They also had limited Monday night telecasts during the season. And that really was an event. You know, we'd be outside and we'd play baseball all morning, or if it was within our Little League season, of course, we'd have our games and usually hope they were earlier so we could get back by, you know, 1 or 2 o'clock when the game of the week came on NBC. But yeah, it was an event. The place I grew up during this time, I had 3 close friends that we all lived in the same proximity and did a lot of stuff together. And like I said, we played baseball in the morning if we weren't in season in Little League, and then adjourn to one of our houses to catch the game of the week. And it was usually my friend Kurt's house, because my mom didn't always like kids in the house. She was kind of a clean freak, and his mom was very welcoming, and it was just a better place to watch sports anyway. So we usually do that and catch the game of the week, and this was a tradition throughout the summer. So what I want to do with this set is kind of nostalgic for me, is kind of simulate the game of the week. And what I'm going to do is go throughout the 1976 season. Won't always be a game from Saturday, but I'll kind of look at the games each week of the season and kind of pick out, you know, a game each week that intrigues me, and that will be our Statis Pro game of the week, using dice and cards. Now, I already have the opening game. You know, I've got to go with my Yankees. It'll be Yankees and Brewers in the opening, but Some other games that I'm definitely going to throw in there will be Mark Fidrich. You'd probably see a couple of games from the Bird. You know, and just what a magical season this was. Wilbur Wood is another one. I'm going to definitely get a game that he pitches. And, you know, he was such a workhorse. And here you can see he was coming out of the pen and kind of on the back end of his career. But in the early 70s, I mean, he won 20 games and lost 20 games one season. I think it was 71, 72. You know, no pitcher would even get a chance to do that anymore. But just looking at these games, a young Dennis Eckersley, and again, you saw me open him when he was with Cleveland. Fritz Peterson, who was a one-time Yankee, and there's my man, Mark the Bird. Definitely going to do a couple of his starts. And what a magical season for him and the Bird. When he found out he'd made the team, him and his girlfriend actually broke into the spring trading stadium where the Tigers would be training and before they broke camp, and had sex on the mound. Maybe TMI, but just a little offshoot to the kind of character he was. And if you watched him pitch, you know, he talked to the ball and groomed the mound, and you know, just a one-of-a-kind baseball player. And I honestly wish there were more players in the game like him today. He really added, even though I wasn't a Tiger fan, whenever he was on TV pitching, I definitely took the opportunity to watch. He added a lot to the game, and it's a shame that his career was shortened. And, you know, ultimately his life was cut short as well in a tragic accident on his farm. But Mark the Bird, just going through some of these names. Dennis Leonard, the Royals, of course, were the Yankees' big nemesis in the, it seemed like, in the ALCS every year. The aforementioned Milwaukee Brewers, and they had some good young talent on there. Bill Travers got off to a promising start in his career, and he was 15 and 16 this year, but you know, he had some good years early on and kind of faded. Jim Slayton was always a solid pitcher. Of course, Gorman Thomas was on that team. Moose Haas. You know, so just going through these, and there's other names. Burt B. Homebly Levin, and he's got split cards. There are a lot of cards in this set. I can tell without even separating them. So Derek did a great job capturing all these players. And, you know, there's other guys here. Randy Jones for the Padres. Honestly, 1974, I believe, he went 8-22. Came back and won 75 games, or 20 games in 75, and won 22 games in 1976 and won a Cy Young Award. And he had no heat. His fastball probably topped out at low 80s, but he was a sinker ball pitcher and a real zany character. If you've ever seen interviews with him, and he had those 2 great seasons. After that, his career kind of fell off, but I'll be looking forward to playing 1 or 2 of his starts with the Padres. And of course, my beloved Yankees, Catfish Hunter. And this was a year before we picked up Reggie, so the free agent craze, as it was just starting, and Hunter was really the pioneer, the big money guys there. And Grant Jackson, a veteran, you'll notice, in fact, in the last 1969 payoff pitch Fergie Jenkins replay, he pitched for the Phils. Tippy Martinez, who went on to some good years with Baltimore, was on the Yankees at that time. And actually, there's a split card for Tippy. Rudy May, a young Ron Guidry, and kind of had a rough season, only had 16 innings pitched, and I'm actually kind of surprised he's carded. The end of the great A's dynasty of Charlie Finley, it was kind of winding down there. Vida Blue, Mike Torres, Stan Bonson, and Bonson and Torres had great seasons with other teams as well. Raleigh Fingers, Texas. So just a lot of great names from childhood here. So I'm looking forward to getting this going, and just wanted to kind of do an opening. And I believe there are fast action cards in this, and some other National League teams. Montreal, I was always a Cubs fan. They were my National League team, and they were terrible in the 70s. And Yankees were until really 76. But Tom Seaver, John Matlack with the Mets. So just a lot of good names. Mickey Lolich, who went to the Mets after his time with Detroit, and he was always a solid pitcher in the day. So that's an early look at the 1976 Statis Pro cards, and Chris from Strat-O-Matic, Delaware, big Pittsburgh fan that you are. I know if you watch this video. I know some names you'll remember: Candelaria, Kent Colby, Moose, Rooker, Bruce Keeson, Doc Medich. So Pittsburgh had some pretty solid teams, especially in their pitching staff there. Rick Langford, who went on to have some good seasons with the A's. And there's our aforementioned Randy Jones. And again, and glad I was right with my facts. Cy Young Award winner and All-Star that season, and a 22-game winner, 22-14. So there you have it. Quick look at some of the 1976 Statis Pro cards, and looking forward to getting that game of the week going. If you have any requests for a game of the week, or any player you might want to see show up on that, drop a comment and I will definitely fit them in. I've already mentioned a few of them: Jones, Mark Fidrich, and of course Yankees as much as possible. So looking forward to getting this going. John Montefusco, the Count with San Francisco. Just good names. Man. It's such a good time for baseball growing up in the 70s. But enough of that. So look for this starting in the next day or two. Probably, it might be Thursday at the earliest. We've already started some off-season football stuff, so I'm going to go work with our quarterbacks tomorrow after work, so I won't have time to do it then. But if not tonight, we'll definitely get something going Thursday. Tonight I'll probably be ripping cards apart all night watching TV. So as always, thanks for watching, thanks for the support, and I'm excited to get this going. Until next time, keep rolling for the fences. We'll see you.